Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Torey and today we are setting up my bullet journal for the second half of 2024. I am using a new bullet journal for this setup, the B6 Meteor Shower bullet journal from Archer&Olive. I do have an affiliate link for Archer&Olive if you're interested in checking them out, and I will pop it up on screen as well as have that in the description box if you're interested. I am using quite a few things for this setup, but I'm going to keep this setup kind of mirroring how I did my initial 2024 setup. I am using this mint vanilla PET tape from the washi tape shop. I'm obsessed with this washi tape, or PET tape. I love it so much. I also have this kind of abstract washi tape, and I think that this is from Studio Calico, probably from a subscription box, but I'm not 100% sure because it was one that I just found in my stash that I thought would go really well with that PET tape. I'm also using the typewriter alphabet stamps from Notebook Therapy. Unfortunately, the last time I checked, those were no longer in stock, but hopefully they'll be brought back. I have this little memo pad that came in the most recent Archer&Olive subscription box. I don't like the lined portion of it, but I love the grid on the back, and I'm thinking I might use that for some of my titles. I have my N89 Tomboy dual brush pen, another Tomboy dual brush pen in 192, and then I'm also using two Pigma microns in 005 and 03. I only end up using the green Tomboy very little, but I do still end up using it through this setup. I have my calendar at a glance and my grid spacing guide that I kept in the front of my initial bullet journal setup for this year, and I'm just going to be transferring those into this half of the year's setup, and essentially I'm going to be creating kind of a similar pocket style for my opening pages. Instead of trying to hand letter my name in here, I'm just going to be using these stamps, and I'm going to stamp out Torey and then write in date started and date ended right underneath that in the following two lines. I do just like to keep track of the dates that I start and end a journal, so that's something that I have been using this book belongs to section for. Whenever I fill that in, I just add my name and then the dates that I was working in that notebook. So I am also going to pull out a piece of the PET tape that I had actually cut out for something else, and I just had kind of a scrap piece left over that I really liked, so I'm going to place that on this kind of opening page as well, just to add a tiny bit of decoration. And then we will jump right into getting everything set up. I have pre-sketched most things out for this setup, and I'm going to be following, like I said, very similar setup to my initial setup for 2024. Everything that I put in my 2024 beginning of the year setup has been working super well, and I've actually been using most, if not all, of the pages that I placed in that setup. So I'm going to do all of those same pages again and kind of get everything set up. However, since I do a few more projects in the second half of the year than I do at the beginning half of the year, I am going to be adding some additional pages, but they're already pages that I've kind of already done. I don't know if that makes sense. We'll chat about that a little bit more when I get to it. I'm just using some double-sided adhesive to create a pocket in the front page here, and this is the page that is kind of glued a little bit more in than the rest of the pages, so it flops a little bit weird. So I have really liked turning this page into a pocket to hold my grid spacing guide and my calendars at a glance. I also have a little metal kind of stencil that I got from Archer&Olive probably like 2 years ago. I don't think that that's still available. I don't think that they sell metal stencils separately anyways, but it's got like a bunch of little dots and other like kind of basic shapes and stuff on it. And I really like using those dots to kind of trace throughout my monthly setups whenever I am filling in, like when I've gotten an order on the way or something like that, which I've talked about, I believe, in my monthly setups. So you can check one of those out if you're interested in learning more about that. But I kind of just draw a circle for my order trackers once it ships, and then check that circle off when I'm done. So I'm just making sure that my little kind of items will fit here and everything is fitting perfectly. So I will jump into getting everything actually set up and decorated. For the washi tape that I chose from Studio Calico, hopefully that's where it's from, the washi tape that I chose from Studio Calico, I'm actually, I think, only on one of these pages going to use the washi tape just as it is. But for most of the pages in this setup, I'm just going to rip the washi tape in half and then kind of reassemble it so that I've got like my straight edges together and then the ripped edges on the outside, and you'll see that I've just done that on the screen here. That is something that I'm going to incorporate throughout most of this setup, with the exception of one of the setups that I do. And I really, really like the way that this looks, and I don't have any wasted washi tape, so I thought that that was fantastic. I am going to pull out one of those pieces of grid paper, and I actually only used one of these memo papers for this entire setup because I was just ripping it smaller and smaller. And I'm going to create a little heading for this side of my page. I am calling it grid spacing and calendar. For my previous setup, I called it year at a glance, but since it's no longer a full year at a glance, I didn't want to call it a year at a glance. So I am just calling it grid spacing and calendar to place in these pockets. And then I will kind of trim down the outside of this once I start ripping it so that there's an even number of spaces, or the same number of spaces on each side. And then I will just rip the top and the bottom. So the sides will have a kind of straight edge, and then the tops and the bottoms will have a ripped edge to kind of mirror a little bit that washi tape that I've added on underneath it. I'm just going to use some rolling adhesive to get this kind of title adhered down, and I'm using that straight edge to line everything up with my dot grid so it's as straight as possible, even though it's got some ripped edges. I'm also going to pull out my jack numbers. These are from Studio Calico. If they are still available, I will link them in the description for you. And I'm going to be using my Misc ink to kind of stamp out my 2024 title. I'm also going to hand letter on page the word part, but I will end up covering this up. And then I'll just pull the 2 from that Notebook Therapy stamp set and kind of stamp out a 2 after my part. So it says 2024 part 2. So I am going to then just do all of the PET tape across this page here. I struggle with PET tape, and this is something that I struggled with when I did my first setup for 2024. I don't know what it is, but I can never get the backing to separate from it. It's easier if I use an X-Acto knife to kind of cut around what I want and then pull it off like a sticker, but that also takes more time than me just trimming around it. So I ended up for this setup just deciding to cut everything out with scissors as opposed to using an X-Acto knife and then just peeling everything like stickers. I also wasn't 100% sure which ones I would want to kind of use as my stickers for the setup. So I didn't want to pre-cut anything out either. So this just kind of seemed like the best option for me, even though it is the most frustrating of the potential options that I had because I cannot stand trying to cut these apart. So I am going to, throughout my setup, do a little bit of erasing here and there because I do have everything kind of pre-sketched out, but I don't want to put this PET tape down over any pencil lines because I would not be able to erase them after I did that, and that would make my mind not happy. So I will be pulling out my eraser and erasing just a few things here and there. I'm also, like I said, going to cover up that little part because I wanted to bring some of this additional washi tape in so that it matched a little bit more the other page. So I'm just covering it up with 2 pieces of that washi tape laying next to each other. And I'm going to pull out another piece of that grid paper that says, and I'm going to redo part. So I'll rip that out and then place that over it. I didn't cover up the stamped to, I'm just redoing the word part on this. I felt like it made the 2 pages go together a little bit better because the washi tape was on both sides now, and then I'll have the PET tape kind of spread all the way around. I believe off camera, when I was kind of letting my camera cool down for a little bit, I do think I come back in and add just a little bit more of the PET tape off camera, but that is something that you will see in the final flip through as well. I just kind of added a little bit around the top so that it was a little bit more kind of all over instead of just on the one side of my spread. Some of the extra pieces and the cutoffs that I have for placing the PET tape towards the edge of my paper, I'm actually going to place underneath my kind of grid spacing and calendar title that I have on the left-hand side, just to kind of use those little pieces up. And I wanted to have a little bit more of the PET tape around this title as well. So since I use that tape runner, it's a little bit removable at first, so it was really easy to just pull that back up and then kind of get that hidden underneath it. For my next 2 spreads, or 1 spread, I don't know, for my next section, I am doing another future log, and this one is a little bit partially done already because I was off camera. I was trying to do some of the duplicate spreads. I was trying to do like the second half of them so I didn't have to do everything on camera. But then I ended up messing something up on this when I was doing it, so I had to cut my paper down. I don't remember. But this one's partially already completed. So what I'm doing here is just going to have a 12-month future log. In my setup for January that I did, I only did 6 months because in my mind, I was just like, this is probably going to hold 6 months for me, so I really only need to have 6 months of information in here. But in June, which is this month, I have had no place to write stuff out for July, and I have quite a few things happening in July that I want to make sure that I have listed so that I can put it in my July setup. So I have like an extra sticky note in my original, or like my other bullet journal, with stuff from July, and I didn't want to have to put a sticky note in here, so I'm just going to do all 12 months, and then if I need to transfer anything over when I do my setup for 2025, I can do that. So for my like sections here, I'm doing horizontal sections, and I just have a border line on either side, the left and the right. I am doing the very first column of each section in either the 192 or the N89. I'm just highlighting that whole column. And then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to put the first 3 letters of each month in those sections as well. I'm using that same grid or graph paper to create my future log title, and then I will place that at the top as well using that same tape runner. I don't really mess too much else with the decoration on this page since I do have a huge piece of the PET tape already placed down at the top. So that's going to be it for most of the decoration. I also off camera add the numbers 7 through 6, all the way through both sides to have kind of a big number for each month as well. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get the first 3 letters of each month added to each section here, and then you'll see that I did this as kind of a Dutch door situation, so I didn't have to do more than one kind of header section. So I just chopped off a little bit of the top of the second piece of paper here, and then you'll see I just flipped it over and you can see the header on this side as well. Like I said though, I do use that same Jack Numbers stamp set, and I use that to just place right next to my header, like you'll see at the final flip through as well, just the number for each month. And then anything that had a 2-digit month, I just used the second number of the 2 digits and then just used this little Notebook Therapy stamp set to add a 1 as well. So the next spread or kind of section that I will be working on is going to be my content section. And this is a section that I've been doing essentially since I started doing bullet journal setups. I had it in my one for last year, and then at the beginning of this year I did this as well. And I really, really like this setup because when I have ideas for content or videos, I'll come and I'll write them in here. And then that way I don't forget about the ideas that I have. And then I can come in and kind of mark off as I complete them. So I have my content section, which is going to be all of the kind of video names. It also kind of helps me think of a video name too, to be completely honest. So I'll have that in here. And then over on the right-hand side of each table will be kind of my steps that I need to do for each video. So I'll have a plan section, a plan column, plan, film, edit, cover, and upload are the 5 kind of areas that I like to mark off as kind of like a milestone for each video. So I am going to have 2 pages, so a whole spread dedicated to just regular videos. On the next 2 pages, those 2 are already done, but those ones are going to be specific to October daily and December daily. Those are 2 projects that I do or I have been doing for the last couple of years, and I do fully intend to do them this year as well. So even if you're not creating content per se, if you do participate in like those projects, you could totally use this table as a way to kind of track each of your days for those particular projects that you're doing, and kind of write down ideas for each day, if you will. So that's how I'm planning to do that for this year. I have a kind of large piece of that Studio Calico washi tape that I have on either side, and then I cut off a little bit of a section on one of the pages so that you can see the edge, like the washi tape on the edge of both sides. And then I'm just going to pick some small pieces of the PET tape to place over top of the washi tape. I'm trying to kind of find some pieces that will contrast a little bit to the colors on the washi tape and place them in a place where they will be like very noticeable, but not detract from the washi tape. And I think I accomplished that pretty well. So yeah, I really like the way that this page looks. It's a little bit, I think, because of the Studio Calico washi tape, I feel like it's a little bit bolder than the rest of the pages in this setup, but it still matches. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this particular kind of area below. If you think it matches or if you think it's a little bit just too different. I'm not 100% sure how I feel. It might have matched a little bit better if I had ripped the edge of the washi tape, since this is the only spread in the setup that doesn't have any kind of ripped edges. And maybe that's why it feels very different to me. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. So my next spread here that we're working on is going to be my trackers spread. So the 2 trackers that I use at the beginning of my setups are my cycle tracker and then a headache tracker. And then I also have underneath my headache tracker 2 different types of headaches that I track. So I track when I have just a regular headache, and then when I have migraines. A regular headache is a dot, and then a migraine is a star. And then for my tracker, for my cycle tracker, is just basically whenever I am on my period or my monthly cycle. So I like to keep track of that as well, just to see if anything crazy is happening. So for this setup is just kind of like a calendar table, essentially. I'm going to number down 1 through 31 and then have the first letter of each month at the top of each row. That way, on that specific day, if I have something to mark off there, all I have to do is put the kind of mark that I need to do for each little area. So for my cycle tracker, if I'm having like a very heavy cycle or a very light cycle, I will either use like a very large dot or a little dot, depending. And then for my headache tracker, depending on the type of headache it is, I will put either a dot or a star in that, day of the month section underneath the coordinating month. And I like to track these things because I can never remember when my cycle is if I don't have it tracked, and it never worked for me on my phone. It was just something that I never could keep up with on my phone, but I've been really good about keeping up with it on paper, which is weird to me, but whatever, it works, so I'm not going to complain. And then for my headache tracker, I feel like I complain about having headaches a lot. So I like to keep track of it in case it's something that I need to bring up to my doctor because they're like excessive or feeling excessive. Then I can kind of pull out my bullet journal and my doctor's appointment and just be like, look at all the headaches I've had this month. Like, this can't be normal. So I like having a way to reference that. And just completely off topic, but has anybody else ever noticed that the first letter of each month at the end of the year, with the exception of December, spells Jason? I was watching a setup recently of somebody else. I don't even remember who it was, but they did the same thing that I was doing here and just used the first letter of the month. And I was just like, that person just wrote Jason. And I have never noticed that before. Have you noticed that? Let me know down in the comments because I thought it was hilarious. And I pointed that out to my husband after I finished this setup, and he was like, what? He was so confused. So I don't think it's something that he ever noticed before either. For my decoration on this page, I'm doing the same kind of process that I was doing previously. Since I'm on like the darker shades of that regular washi tape, I'm going to pull out some of the like white flowers so that I can place them over the washi tape. I felt like the white flowers would stick out really well on this like super deep green, and I really liked the way that they all worked together, so that's what I ended up choosing. And I will cut those out separately so that they can be kind of more noticeable. I will also add a little bit of greenery from this PET tape as well, and I'm just going to place that, I believe, right next to the washi tape. I got a little confused and like indecisive when it came to that portion of it, so I think I fiddle with it for a minute, but ultimately I do actually end up placing it down, and I was really happy with the way that everything turned out. I will also, after I get all of this PET tape down, I'll come back in with my N89 Tombow, and I'm going to highlight that first row where I have the JASOND for the months of each table. I'm going to highlight that with my N89 marker. And we are on now the last 2 pages of this setup. Now, one of these is undecided. I don't know what I'm going to be using this page on the left-hand side for. In my beginning of the year setup, I used it as a when did I last page, but I literally only wrote one thing on that page for the entire first half of the year. So I don't know if I'm going to use it for that again. It kind of felt a little wasted for the first 6 months of the year. So I am going to put some decoration and a box on the left-hand side because I wanted there to be like 2-page kind of spreads. I didn't want to have like one leftover page. That way when I flip over, I have my first full 2 pages to use as my July opening page. So I didn't want there to just be like an extra blank page, so I'm going to fill that in. And I also wanted my themes at a glance page to be the last page before my July spreads begin. So that's how we ended up with this as it is. I'm doing my themes at a glance almost exactly like I did for my beginning of the year setup, where I just put my title at the top, and then I have 6 boxes here that I will fill in with my upcoming themes. I really loved how this looked for my first half of the year, and I'll pop a little photo up on the screen here that I posted to Instagram. I'm obsessed with it. So I am really excited to do the themes at a glance again for the second half of the year. For this kind of miscellaneous page that I have over on the left hand side, I'm going to add just some washi and PET tape just to kind of decorate it a little bit. But like I said, I have no idea what I'm going to be using this for. So I don't want to add too much decoration to that one, because I don't want to potentially limit myself when and if I decide what to use it for. If I can't think of anything like for tracking purposes or anything that I would want to use that page for, I'm thinking it could also be cool to just pick like a favorite photo for each month and just do like a little photo collage as well. That might be what I end up using it for, but I'm going to leave it kind of open for maybe a couple of months in case there's something that I see that I want to start tracking for the second half of the year, and then I have a spot to do so. But like I said, if I don't have anything ultimately to use it for, I will probably just do like maybe a favorite photo collage for each month for the second half of the year. Let me know if you have any ideas of what I could use this page for. Maybe there's something more exciting that I would like more than what I'm thinking so far. So I am just going to get some of the PET tape added to these 2 pages here. And I believe that's going to be the last thing I do, just kind of getting these 2 pages decorated. And then we will jump into the final flip through. I am going to, on the themes at a glance page, I'm going to also use that graph paper or grid paper as a way to specifically call out that the themes are for July through December. And the reason that I chose to do that was simply because I felt like that bottom portion just was missing something. And let me know if you feel the same way. It just really feels like this little part that I'm adding this PET tape to now, it just feels like it's missing something. So I'm pulling out a piece of that paper and I'm just going to stamp July to December on it. And then I feel like that really helped bring it kind of to completion. So we are done here with my mid-year setup for my 2024 bullet journal. I've got everything kind of placed in here, and you'll see that there's a couple of extra things added, like these stamps and some additional stickers on that opening page. But I think that that's really all that I did off camera. I would love to know your thoughts on this setup down in the description box or down in the comments below. Anything that is still available, I will link in the description box for you. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in my next video. If you have any specific themes you would like to see me try for July, let me know down in the comments and I will pick one and do it. I have a reading journal and bullet journal setup that I still need to do for next month. All right, have a great day, everyone. Bye.